What up, Mike?
What's up, Mr. Rick?
Welcome to the Dirt Road, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our beautiful New York City farm. And I thought we'd take a couple of minutes at the beginning just to respond to a couple of comments, because I want you guys to definitely be involved. And we had a few comments on our video about education, and they were basically to me, which I figured I knew most people would agree with Mike on that. We were talking about school choice and so forth. So I just want to read a couple of the comments out there and maybe just give you a personal response instead of typing it out, which is kind of impersonal. So to Peter Stanton 27. Peter Stanton 27 wrote, Rick, state law states children need to attend school. Municipalities have written in their charters for free public education. School choice is the best way to provide a service, cheaper and better. Well, yes, you are 100% right. They are in state charters. This goes all the way back to colonial times, to my knowledge, Mike. It goes in the Massachusetts State Constitution, written by John Adams, who definitely had a hand in writing our Constitution. Yeah. He put of the value of a free public education. So that is definitely true. I didn't argue against that. And a free public education, I'm completely in favor of it. I'm in favor of any way anybody wants to educate their child.
100%.
I'm in favor of homeschooling. I'm in favor of parochial schools. I'm in favor of public schools. I'm in favor of private schools if one could afford it. The parochial schools, like I said, there are churches that have scholarships out there, and they help people get into these schools who can't afford them. So yeah. I have no issue with that at all, Peter. You did right, though, at the end. School choice is the best way to provide a service, cheaper and better. I don't know that it's cheaper, especially since Mike said in his comments to me that the money would, quote, follow the child. So it doesn't seem cheaper.
The general principle, yeah.
Same amount of money. So I don't see how it would be cheaper and better. Again, I don't know that it would be better. Look, charter schools do have better numbers. We know that. But what we don't know is the reason for it. And there could be many, many reasons for it. One, in my opinion, is that charter schools are free to discipline the kids, grade the kids as they see fit. They don't have to follow all of the rules that all the other public schools have to follow. But to me, the main thing is, and again, I'm not blaming parents. I'm a parent, you're a parent. But parents who will wait online for 3 days and enter lotteries and do anything they can to get their kid into a charter school is an involved parent.
Sure.
And those parents will do anything they can to keep their kids in that charter school, including not going in and arguing with the principal when their child gets in trouble, making sure that their kids do the work, and they don't argue if their kids are held accountable for doing the work like many parents in some of the public schools do. So I don't, they definitely do have better numbers, charter schools. Numbers are numbers. You can't argue with it.
Sure. What
we don't know is the exact reason why. I would argue the reason why is because by nature, those schools are going to have much more involved parents and parents who will acquiesce to what the schools say, because they literally will do anything they can to get their kids out of the school they're in and into these charter schools. So I just don't think it's a fair comparison. That's just my view. But Peter, I would be very interested to know how you think it's cheaper and why you think it's better. And again, charter schools I know are only one kind of school choice.
Right.
There are other.
There's all
different types of theories out there. But anyway, thanks for the comment, Peter. I do appreciate it. Busy B said, yes, parents do not do enough of their part by taking care of the home time, education, and homework. Most parents these days are working longer hours, more days on 2 jobs. Normally, it is both parents working. It's hard to stay in the economic flow. But at the same time, when children know teacher's political party or sexual orientation or what pronouns he or she uses, it is a failure on the teacher's side. I could not agree with you more. Yeah, I was a teacher for 32 years. I do want to tell you this one thing, though, Mike. And I could tell you because just like you could tell me for a fact that most cops are good, I could tell you for a fact most teachers do not walk into the classroom, announce their pronouns.
Absolutely. Yeah,
and
absolutely
I always told teachers when I was a union rep, I said, don't tell kids about your personal life.
No.
I had mentioned it in one of our other videos, and who's this Busy Bee, to you too. Teachers have a captive audience, and I think it's somewhat human nature.
Sure.
When nobody wants to listen to you out there in the real world, and now you have this opportunity. You got these 30 kids sitting in front of you. They can't go anywhere. But I do think it's inappropriate. I personally moved into the neighborhood where I taught, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to be part of that community. So my kids played Little League with my students. My kids made their sacraments with my students. I saw parents in the supermarket all the time. So I had a personal relationship, but I never went into the classroom talking about, a date I had the night before, or, what me and my wife did the day before, or anything like that. I think it's appropriate on all levels, not just for the pronoun thing. But I do think that this is blown way out of proportion. I worked in the New York City public schools until 2 years ago, and you just don't really see it as much as they make it out on the news. So that's what I would say, Busy Bee. I don't disagree with you one bit. I do think that's a failure. I think it's a waste of time, but that is not the problem in it. That's not the reason why our kids can't read at grade level. It's not the reason why they can't do math at grade level. It's not because teachers are coming in and talking about their personal lives once in a while. They shouldn't. I do agree with you, Busy Bee. I think I don't know why people do it, other than, like I said, I think it just might be human nature, because you have people who have to pay attention to you by rule. But Busy Bee, I appreciate your comment, and if you want to respond to what I said, you can. You also added there, but when children come home and the entire homework is for the parent to do all the classwork and explaining it, that is also a failure on the teacher's level. Well, yes and no. I mean, when kids fail, it is a failure on the teacher's part. It's both. It means that you haven't reached them for some reason. And it's impossible to reach. Look, I would say on average, just do the math quickly, 3 decades, 150 kids a year, that's got to be close to 5,000 kids.
Sure.
You can't be successful 5,000 times at anything. So, yes.
Unless you're me.
Unless you're Mike. Yes, Mike is successful. So it is a failure on the teacher's part, and every teacher knows that. If you give a test and 2/3 of the class fails the test, any teacher is going to rethink what they did in that unit and is going to think, why is this happening?
Mr. Mark.
So I don't blame parents. I am a parent. But I can tell you right now, this whole idea of, parents work 2 jobs and blah, 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 blah. No, that's putting it off on the teacher to raise your child. If you work 2 jobs, if you work 3 jobs, I worked multiple jobs. Lisa worked. My mother worked. She still read to me. You have to find time. So if a parent's working 2 jobs and both parents are working, or it's a single parent, if that parent spends a half an hour on social media a night, that's a half hour they could have been spending with their child.
Absolutely.
If they spend a half an hour watching television a night, then I don't want to hear about the 2 job shit. Because you're not working 24 hours a day. And even if you are, when you're a parent, you have a responsibility. And you are that child's first teacher. Yep. You got to learn your ABCs at home, right?
Yeah,
you learn
ours,
at home. And it's a parent's responsibility. They have a part. It's 3 parts. It's the teacher, it's the child, and it's the parent.
Yeah.
But only one of those 3 is a child. And I don't tend to blame children. Because they're children.
They're children. They're not making the choices that are leading them where they are. It's your choices for them.
Exactly. So, I know parents are busy. I was busy. I mentioned it in another video. I worked 3 jobs, 6 days a week to put my kids through Catholic school. Yep. Again, my choice. I'm not asking for pity. My choice, 100%. But I still watched TV, right? I still went out and played cards once in a while. You have the time to do things, and you know what? If you have to get a half hour's less sleep every night to read to your kid, or to check your kid's homework, then you have to get a half hour's less sleep. That's all. That's all there is to it. Again, just my opinion. I'm not passing blame onto parents. I think, again, the failure of a child is 3 parts. It's the child, it's the parent, and it's the teacher and or the school. But it's very hard to blame a kid, because kids are going to be kids. Right. So that's my response to Busy Bee. And again, thank you very, very much, Busy Bee, for commenting. Thank you to everybody who's been commenting. We've been getting a few.
We've been getting a few.
Which is good.
Good attention. You guys getting a lot of views, and we appreciate it, believe me.
We are. I just found out one of the comments was his wife under a pseudonym, though, so we can't count that one. But
that's her YouTube channel. If you like World of Warcraft, you can go check them out. It's 2 moms who play Warcraft or something like that. It's on the comments there. But you can go check out her and her friend playing Warcraft, because they're nerds.
But at some point, hopefully, Mike, this podcast gets too big for us to respond to every comment. But right now...
will probably happen.
Yeah, hopefully. But right now, I'd be more than happy to respond to your comments. Mike would be more than happy to respond to your comments. So please, we do want this to be interactive. We're not here educating anybody. We're not conceited like that, like a lot of these YouTube people are.
No.
We don't feel... I'm an expert on absolutely nothing in life. Mike's an expert. We have our experiences.
But we're not an expert on anything.
Mike could tell you his experiences in the streets of New York, in the deserts of Afghanistan. I could tell you my experiences in the New York City public school system. But neither one of us pretends to be an expert on anything. We're just having a conversation. This was all Mike's wife's idea. She heard us talking at family barbecues all the time and said we should video this. So here we are videoing it. So be a part of it. Comment right down. It's right down there, right, Mike?
Yeah, right down over there. Just comment down there. Let us know what you think, and let's get into conversation. We want to spark just massive conversations, right? Everybody getting together and talking, regardless of where you stand politically or whatever else. Just so we could actually start moving the ball forward in an actual, honest, reasonable way.
Absolutely.
I think, we were talking about education. We're going to keep doing education tonight. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, this video is going to be a continuation of our last one, but we're not going to touch on the school choice or the teachers' unions because we already kind of beat that to death. I do just want to add again to the comments that were made. The money following the child thing, I just don't get the math again because everybody pays taxes, whether they have no kids, 1 kid, 8 kids. So, that money that goes towards educating kids, it could cost like $10,000 a child in New York City, but it's not really $10,000 a kid. Special ed kids in the 12 to 1-to-1 class or kids who have disabilities.
It's much different.
It costs much more to educate that child than someone else. So it's just not as simple as some people make it out to be.
It's a complicated. It is most certainly a complicated issue. I think there's a way forward for it, but it's not a simple, one size fits all.
No, it's not. And again, sometimes my concern is the intent. And sometimes I feel, and I could be wrong, I can't tell anybody where they're coming from, but sometimes I feel like the intent of these things is more about a disdain that people have for what's going on in public schools right now. And I don't necessarily disagree with that disdain on some of the things. And I think it's more of that's why I compared it to the defund the police thing, because of a couple of bad apples in the police force, and then people get all mad,
twist the whole thing around,
right? And their anger is, well, let's just bust it all up and quote unquote reimagine. I'm doing the air quotes now, like you. I caught that. Reimagine the police. Remember that?
Reimagine the police.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel that's what people are doing with education. They're angry.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, they're angry, and they have a right to be angry. But again, I don't want my tax money, Mike, going to Volodymyr Zelensky or Benjamin Netanyahu. But unfortunately, I don't get that choice. I don't get the refund. What I get to do is vote for people who will spend my taxes the way I would prefer them spending my taxes. Yeah. To me, that's the answer if we're going to live in a democracy or a representative republic. That's where I would go with that. But
I agree.
We do want to go more towards the education side of this tonight. Mike wanted to bring up some things and talk about some things. So, Mike, what was on your mind?
Education, right? It's probably the most important thing that we can talk about because that's honestly what's going to set the next generation of leaders.
Of course.
And steer our country in a place that actually makes sense or steer us back into the third world status, Stone Age. But my thing about the teachers thing and the school choice thing is this. I don't see the problem with our schools as being the teachers by and large. Obviously, there's bad apples out there that's easy to find.
Absolutely.
But I think our problem is mostly just like the military. So we talked about the military in one of the videos about how it's so top heavy now. We have more flag officers now than we did during World War II, and we have
each with their own budget, each with their own staffs, each with their own.
It's like 1/100th the size force. So it's completely lopsided, top heavy craziness. I think that's what's happening with our education system. I think it's top heavy, and there's not enough actual, too many chiefs, not enough Indians, right? So
are we allowed to say that anymore?
Who cares? Cancel me.
Hey, by the way, I'm sorry, but since you said that, I love that reaction. I was watching our video, I think it was like 2 videos ago, and you had said something like, people are going to call us fascists for what we said. I said, I'm a fangul. That was my... And I didn't even remember saying that until I watched the video.
One, yeah.
But that's a genuine reaction, Mike, because that is my... Kiss my ass.
I agree.
Kiss my ass.
Cancel me. I've been shot. I've been shot at. You think you're going to scare me with some canceling nonsense?
But it's not even about kissing. It's like, if you don't like what my thoughts are, fine. Argue with me, talk with me. I love having discussions. I'll argue about anything. The Yankees and Red Sox, politics, religion, whatever. I love having discussions. But when people start setting up straw men and people start with the ad hominems and every other, logical fallacy that you could imagine, that is my response of a fangula. Kiss my ass. I don't get, and I really wish more people, because it seems to be our side, so to speak, are the timid ones. We're the ones who always, when we hear somebody say something, we go, "Oh, I agree with what you said." I'm whispering right now.
Yeah, they're whispering the affirmation.
Yeah,
and don't want to come out and
and
say
my answer is, grow a set, or strap one on, man. Speak up if that's what you believe. What the hell are you worried about? You know,
be
you're not saying
vocal,
anything
be
terrible.
honest, be reasonable. Don't be rude, don't be nasty, but you can be, honest and vocal and loud even without being rude or nasty or any of those other things.
Absolutely, political arguments are what built this country.
Absolutely, look at.
Our founding fathers fought with each other.
Yeah, they had fist fights during the
duels. They had fucking duels.
Yeah, that's right. I remember. Yeah, listen, those were rough dudes, right? They fought a friggin' revolution. They built a country. These were rough dudes, and Americans by and large are rough, right? Look at you look at our history, good, bad, indifferent, and it's a rough history. We're rough people, which. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that.
But it seems like our side is now, more timid, and I hate to say our side because I don't want to act like it's not the Civil War.
I don't claim that. I don't claim that part of it. I look at the timid ones as like the McConnells, the Romneys of the world, the establishment kind of side of our party.
Well, I'm more talking about like people like us.
I know, and it's the people who kind of follow those people.
Yeah, maybe.
Listen, I've been obviously in the MAGA space for a while, right?
Yes, you have.
I've dealt with them a lot, especially during the campaign. And I don't know that you find a more loud group of people, except maybe Antifa when they're crying for getting their asses kicked, which, good for you. You deserve every bit of it. Enjoy.
We got to circle back to education now. So we said we were going to talk about education, but not from the standpoint of the politics of it.
No, not the politics of it, just the actual problem solving maybe aspect of it, or what really. I think teachers are amazing, honestly. By and large, I've met so many amazing. I know so many great teachers. I've met so many great teachers. I've had so many great teachers that inspired me in a number of ways. And I don't think that the vast majority of them are at all ill-intentioned or even remotely want to share their life with you. Like, they want to educate you, and that's awesome. I think the problem again is administration. I think that we're like the military is right now. We're kind of top heavy with administration. And you have all these, cronyism, and these, you're going to do this program because now this politician got elected, and that's his donor, so now he's pushing that program down on these people. And you said to yourself earlier, you're held to a different standard than like a charter school or a private school. You have to give certain grades, or you have restrictions on, materials. And
so let me touch on that for a second. So, in our contract, and this is just New York City, and again, other areas might not have contracts that are as pro-teacher as we do, but we have in our contract that we cannot be forced to change a child's grade. A principal cannot come to a New York City public school teacher and demand you change the grade. The principal has the authority to change the grade themselves, but they have to put in writing why they're doing it. So they can override us, but they have to put in writing why. What many principals will do, unfortunately, and they could do this to untenured teachers very easily, is just intimidate them into doing it themselves because they don't want to put in writing. And what happens is we've gone through periods of time now where, all right, so I'll tell you a quick story. So my own policy, and this was just my policy as a teacher, if a kid got below a 50 on a test, I didn't give him a numeric grade. I gave him an F. And my reasoning for that is because if some kid gets a 23 on their first test, the odds of them getting a passing grade at the end of the semester are almost zero. They'd have to get 100 on every other test during the marking period just in order to get a 65 and pass. That was my policy.
That makes sense.
And the kids who get the 23s are going to get the 23s on the rest of the tests most of the time anyway. So it didn't inflate my grades, I don't think. But over the last few years, teachers have been told you can't give a grade below a 50. They've been told you can't lower a kid's grade because they're missing homeworks. They were told you can't lower a kid's grade because of their latenesses or absences. So everything is done to just inflate these grades.
Right.
Because we were talking about money. That's how the New York City schools get money. New York City schools, since Bloomberg, he changed the way that the funding goes. So now each school gets their own budget. It used to be the district got the budget and distributed it. So a principal could call up the district office and say, I need money for an extra dean. Do you have it? And they'd see if they had, and they get it to you. Now a principal is given X amount of money. They have to run the school on that money for the year. Part of the way that money is granted is by grades, is by, how you do on English and math. So what happened there was everything was geared towards English and math. And things like history and the arts and everything and science was kind of pushed to the side because it didn't equal money.
The dollars.
So there are a lot of problems at the top, like you said, but in the classroom itself is where education is always going to go on.
Of course.
No matter what happens you could be in the most corrupt school system in the world.
Teachers are going to teach.
Right. So if you have what's going on in the classroom is going on in the classroom, and that's it. So you as a parent see things, differently than a teacher would. So where do you think the problems are? Forget the administrative stuff because we can't solve that. But as far as what's going on, well, I mean, we can't solve it here right now, But just as far as you as a parent, what are the things that you object to so much in the public schools?
The only thing that I would say that really would bother me, and you don't really see it in the school district with the kids here. They're very good about that. They're very much about education and not politicization. But the politicization stuff. So the DEI stuff, where you start pushing these kind of principles of victimhood and things like that. Where they take away meritocracy and they remove that and they make that more about victimhood. That's really, to me, the biggest probably red flag of any school district. If that's going on in a school, that's absolutely undermining every bit of education happening there.
Yeah, and it's going on in a lot of schools. But again, I don't know that takes up as much time as it's made out to be. Teachers do not spend hours upon hours talking about gender and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine. I mean, I couldn't imagine you could fill a day with that even. I mean, that'd be exhausting. But you see elements of it. I guess here and there and stuff. You'll see elements of it.
It comes up.
It's going to pop in here and there.
It's going to come up in school assemblies nowadays and things like that.
Sure, you get school events, school-wide events, that kind of thing, maybe.
And the DEI stuff is that stuff is penetrating schools. But again, my solution to that is schools are run by politicians, and we have the absolute ability to get those politicians out.
That's absolutely what
if
should
they're not
happen.
doing what we think. But I can guarantee you one thing, Mike. Like I said before, I think I taught about 5,000 students over 32 years. I can guarantee you not one of them can honestly tell you that they know who I ever voted for in any election. Now, they have a 50-50 shot if they want to be a wise ass and guess and say they knew. But never once did I ever get. Well, I always tried to get it out of them. And this is one of the things that I think about now, because I retired 2 years ago, and a lot has changed, since COVID.
It's been fast, yeah.
So I always gave an assignment during the State of the Union speech. And I make the kids basically watch the speech from beginning to end. And I had them learn everything. I taught them the history of it and where it is in the Constitution, and how it was basically George Washington who decided that, because the Constitution says that the president shall do this from quote-unquote time to time.
Yes.
Washington set the precedent that it would be once a year.
Right.
He did it in front of Congress. Then Jefferson came along. He felt that it was too regal, too much like a king addressing Parliament. So he started writing out his annual statement.
Yeah.
That lasted all the way up to Woodrow Wilson, who during World War I, he went back to doing it, the original way in front of Congress. And it's been that way ever since. But, so I would teach them all of that and have them write it. Anyway, I had them act as if they were a reporter on the scene covering it. And it was a good way for me to teach them about the three branches of government, because they're all there. The Supreme Court's there, the President. It's the only time
they're really ever together in that one spot.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you have the President's cabinet there. You have the President, obviously. It's also a good way to teach them that the Vice President is the President of the Senate. That's why the Vice President sits up with the Speaker of the House. Right. Because technically they're the hosts.
Yeah.
Right? They have to technically invite the President.
And they're
Right. So they invite. So it's a great way. It's a good starter. To teach.
It's a great civics lesson.
Yeah. And in the assignment, I always had them. They had to pick two things that the president said that they agreed with or liked, and explain why, and two things the president said that they disagreed with, and explain why. Because to me, if you're going to watch another human being speak for an hour and a half, he's got to say something you agreed with, something you disagreed with.
Yeah.
So it forced them to kind of try to see both sides. And I've wondered ever since I've retired if I would still be able to give that assignment now, especially if Trump were president.
Sure.
Or when Trump was president. Would I be, what would the reaction be if I actually forced kids to find two things Donald Trump said that they agreed with? I don't know. So that's where I think the politics might enter the classroom a little bit too much. But again, that's about fear. I had this glorious thing called tenure, and I was able to, as long as I was doing my job, I
couldn't say shit.
Didn't worry about that sort of stuff.
Listen, I think teachers are awesome. I think they're amazing people, and obviously education is the cornerstone. It's like the bedrock of a society. We have we talk about we're a society of laws, right? And we always say this: we're a society of laws. We'll have a whole show about that because that's a whole nother bag of poop. But at the end of the day, those laws are only in place and only understood because we are an educated society. Without the education and without the education system we have, we wouldn't be able to do any of the things we've done. Go to the moon, any of the stuff that's gone on. So education is critical, absolutely critical. If we're talking about like infrastructure and like this overall infrastructure.
Listen, some of our greatest Americans have come out of the public school system.
Of course, absolutely.
And that was the way always for, anyone from immigrants to poor people to anybody to rise up in American life was by getting that free public education. The politics, when it comes to teaching history, here's where I think the problem is that I've heard so many times on TV and from people just in discussion, they start a sentence with, they don't teach, and then add in whatever it is you want to add in, right? And you can, so again, I don't know what it's like in other areas. In New York City, children get American history in the 7th and 8th grade.
Right.
It's a very basic survey course. The 7th grade is the first half, 8th grade is the second half. Then in the 11th grade, they get a full year of American history again. World history is in between those years. They get a full year of American history again, either AP or regular, where it's much more in depth. The kids are older, they're 11th graders, and then the 12th graders when they get economics and government. One of the problems is that everybody wants, quote unquote, their history in it. So why aren't you teaching about this person? Why aren't you teaching about that event? Why? We have almost, including from the time of Columbus till now, we have 500 years of America. You couldn't teach everything if you gave kids American history lessons from the 7th grade all the way through the 12th and they didn't learn anything else. You wouldn't be able to include everything. That's one of the problems now, is that I think it's so overloaded with the, you're going to get a minute of learning about this person because they have to be put into the curriculum because the politician said so or the parents demanded it, and you can't learn that way.
No, because it's a shotgun blast of nonsense information that doesn't fit together in a narrative.
No, it's not. So, I think we've definitely not focused enough on civics.
Oh, I would agree.
And when they do, and I could tell you this, civics is really, they should just rename the topic activism, because that's really the way civics is taught now. It's just more about activism. And
it was even when I was going to high school. One of my classes in high school for civics, it was the teacher. She was nice. She was a sweet lady, but she was very, very far left even back then. Very, very left, and even back then I was mostly right. And she would just push this like protest stuff, and we have to go protest this nuclear power plant or whatever else it was that she was protesting at the time, and that was basically the class. And it kind of annoyed me because I was like, all right, I'm here to actually learn about governance and government.
Well, I mean, now the right to protest and petition our government's right there in the Constitution, so that's fine.
It's great. Listen, I'm all for
But that's
protest.
not all there is to civics.
Right. I wanted to actually learn about the structure of the government. How does the Congress work? How does the Senate work? What part goes to this, and how it all kind of lays out. And how
because that's a problem in our society today, is that a lot of times the protesters don't even really understand what they're protesting, or they're protesting something that can't be fixed by the people they're protesting against.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't really understand the structure of our government. So, it's a much, much broader topic than just the activism, but activism is a part of our civic history.
Sure.
I mean,
listen,
the Boston Tea Party was
the Boston Tea Party was the ultimate activist moment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even, look, activism's important. It's part of your rights. It's something that should be understood. And I said this when I was on the job, I 100% could disagree with you, but I will stand that line and fight as hard as I have to protect your right to believe what you believe. I don't have to agree with you, but it's your right to believe that. I'm going to protect that. But we've gotten to a point now where activism has become more about, silencing the other side, which that's not helping anything.
And it almost seems like a profession now.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It is. Listen, I worked a lot of cases, and I had a case with some Antifa people that were throwing Molotov cocktails at a van full of cops, all this stuff, whatever. And long story short, these were a lot of paid agitators coming into the city to do these things during BLM riots. There was a lot of people who were being paid and supported financially by various non-governmental organizations to do the kind of destruction they were doing, to foment this dissent, to kind of create more violent environments, to do kind of like really just awful things, break store windows and loot and do all this stuff. They were instigating this stuff, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. But I could tell you, as we wrap this up, and to all our commenters, this was my job for 32 years, and I was in one of the most liberal school systems you could imagine.
Sure.
I had a picture of Pope John Paul on my desk.
Nice.
Never had a problem. Never anybody. Nothing. No problems at all. They don't bother you about that stuff. I never pushed on the kids. It was there with that picture was there with a picture of my kids and my wife and everybody else.
Sure.
It was just there for me to remind, just
Remind
a
you
little
of your
reminder.
faith. Yeah.
But I can tell you this. I saw for 32 years, I saw grown men and women who don't make a lot of money come in an hour and a half before the kids get there, making copies, making phone calls, setting up their chalkboard, and then eventually their smart boards. I saw men and women, again, who don't make a lot of money, stay way after 3 o'clock, calling parents, tutoring kids. I've seen men and women not making a lot of money. I'm not trying to say poor us. This was just the job. You gave up your lunch many, many times. I saw most teachers do this. Give up their lunch to sit with children who were struggling.
Yep.
Sometimes just to sit with children and BS with them, because some of these kids have real freaking problems.
Oh, God,
that you can't imagine.
The homes they're coming from are just
and
horrific.
When I became a teacher, within the first year or so, I really started to appreciate my parents.
Oh, God,
and I really started to appreciate my childhood, because the problems that I saw, and just like you as a cop, right? I mean, you see
the
things
horrific. You see a very ugly side of humanity.
Yeah, I mean, and yours is a more violent version of what I saw, but you're
got the
seeing a
extreme
society
versions
that
of it,
you can't imagine. Now you have people shooting at you. I'm looking at children, and again, I don't blame children. And when children are going through that, it does break your heart.
Sure.
And I saw teachers work like dogs for that, and that's why I do get defensive.
Of course, you should.
Because those are the people I worked with. There was some bad ones, just like in anything. We have in New York City, I think 80,000, 85,000 teachers. That's just in New York City.
Yeah.
Of course a few thousand of them are going to be bad. That's still a small percentage. And it's a self-cleansing job, Mike. 50% of teachers leave within the first 5 years.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
They do. It's a very, very high turnover, because some just can't do it. It's a very difficult job to do. You have to have a lot of patience. Again, I'm not saying poor me, but most of the quote-unquote bad teachers leave.
Right.
Because they're not bad people.
It's just bad at their job.
They're not good at that job, or the job's not for them, or it's too much pressure, and they're out. And that's why when people say, let's just, Mayor Bloomberg said fire 10% of the teachers, because that's what they do in the corporate world. They think that 10% is the number to get rid of. And replace them with what? Where are these new teachers coming from? How do you know they're better? There's just many other things we can do.
I don't like the knee-jerk kind of like blanket policy like that.
No.
I like to look at the problem and actually figure out what's the real problem, what's the real solution.
Yeah.
And let's have a discussion about that.
Well, I think the problem is what most of our problems are, and I think it's societal. I just think our society is I don't want to use hyperbole and say it's breaking down, but in a sense, I guess it is. It's not a stable society
at all. I think it really is. I mean, look at the culture right now. Look at how we've become a very, very narcissistic culture, right? Very narcissistic. And it's always immediate gratification and always about me and look at me or woe is me or what. Everything has been turned inside out, upside down. It really has. And until you step back from that and you actually bring back some kind of morality and some moral compass back into your life, and you actually put things ahead of yourself, your family, your whatever it is, you're not going to be any better.
Right. And I think schools are a symptom of that.
I would agree.
Whereas I think a lot of people out there think that the schools are the cause of it. And I guess we'll never know, it's a chicken egg thing, but in my opinion, I think the problems that we have in education and the failures
start at home.
That we have, I think they start as I don't want to quote Hillary Clinton, but she is right when she said it does take a village. It takes a community, it takes a society to make a society work.
Sure.
And it does. And I think education is a symptom. I think the failures that we're having in our education system are not the cause of the problems. I think they're the results of the breakdown of society, the breakdown of family, the breakdown of values, the breakdown of accountability, everything you could list. But that's just my opinion.
Well, no, I agree with you, though. I do. I agree with you on that. I think it's a breakdown of society. I do. I think it's a breakdown of the family structure and family unit, which is under attack. Mm-hmm. You have traditional masculinity, which has been under attack for a long time. Mm-hmm. You have all these traditional values and things that kind of held the glue that kind of held things together as a society are being, eroded or stripped away. and things are falling apart, and people are like, why is this falling apart? Well, stop tearing it apart. It's not falling apart. You're tearing it apart with these things you're doing.
But they don't really have the power to do that. I mean, it still falls on people themselves. You know, you could
have to let them do it. Yeah.
Right. You know, and I had made a comment in one of our last videos about the whole idea of, you know, calling a husband and wife partner now. And how I thought, you know, that takes away from the whole idea of the marriage and the family unit.
Yeah.
Because you're not a partner. You know, my kids call you Uncle Mike. You're their uncle.
That's right.
They're your nephews.
Yep.
You know, you have a title in a family because you have a role in a family.
Yeah.
You know, and when you start with this partner thing and all those things that you brought up before about masculinity, you know, toxic masculinity, all of that sort of stuff, here's where I think we really see the cause and effect of the family breakdown. When those roles started to change, and again, don't set up some goddamn straw man. I'm not telling everybody to be barefoot and pregnant and women belong in the kitchen. But because I like to cook too, you know, it's not about that. But when you break down the roles that people have in society, look at what's happened. You know, first we had an incredible divorce rate.
Oh, God.
And now we have something even worse. We have a very low marriage rate.
Yeah, nobody's getting married. Nobody's having kids. The population decline is like...
Yes.
I mean, you can look at countries like Japan, right? Singapore, I think, is actually paying people to have kids now and get married. But it's worldwide. And it's again, it's an attack on traditional principles and traditional kind of, you know, belief systems. And whether it's about faith or not is, you know, you can take that out of it. But at the end of the day, societies need to be regenerated. And that regeneration comes from us having kids and raising families and teaching those moral values.
But it's the family, right? So when you hear people say, you know, and again, I'm not saying you're a bad person if you call your wife your partner or whatever, but the titles in a family are there for a reason, right? They identify you. They say who you are. They
delineate your role.
Right. So in a marriage, again, it doesn't. When my wife and I went to pre-Cana, I remember the older couple that was talking to us saying that a marriage is 50-50. But that doesn't mean that you each do the dishes 50% of the time.
Right.
It means you each take 50% of the responsibility for the family.
Right.
And I always remembered that, you know,
well, yeah,
because I thought that was great advice.
It is.
Because that's what it has to be. So in that sense, yes, it is a partnership. But when people say that it's a partnership or that why get married is just a piece of paper, no, it's not just a piece of paper, Mike. The piece of paper is for tax purposes. That's all that is.
That's the government nonsense.
Right. When you get married, you're creating a family, right? That's why you take the same name.
To become one.
And then two families join together, right? You and I have no blood in common.
Yeah.
But we're family.
Of course.
Right? And that's it. So
and that's important and that matters because now, I think it's, and I agree with you 100%, I think it's about the commitment, right? Yep. You're committing yourself. You're
publicly
saying, I am taking this person and I'm committing myself to this person and to whatever may come of this, to the family, to the extended family, to all of it. I'm committing myself to this.
And you're doing it publicly.
Yeah, it's a vow.
Right, it's a vow, and it's not just to that man or that woman that you're marrying, but it's also to their family.
Sure,
right? You become a part of their family.
Yeah, whatever they come with, they're coming with. Whatever you come with, you're coming with.
Right. When I'm with Lisa's cousins, I don't introduce them as my wife's cousins. I introduce them as my cousins.
My cousins. Yeah.
You know, you become a family.
Yeah. Now they're my cousins too.
When you don't have that marriage, that's different. You know. So again, I'm not saying everybody has to get married. You know, even the church says there are people who are called to the single life. It's not about that, and it's not about me telling anybody how to live. Just like I said in another video, don't tell me how to live. You know, this is how I think society is.
Well, yeah, and I agree. But I agree with you. But I think societies are built on families.
I do too, and I think that's where the structure is breaking down. And again, I know things happen. People do have to get divorced. There's violence in families.
Yes,
you know, things happen.
Sometimes things happen, sure.
Of course, but the way that we've just, as a society, taken the whole idea of marriage and made it almost a negative thing. And the whole idea of family and family roles and made it a negative thing. I think that's the cause of a lot of the problems we face, specifically in education.
100%. Yeah. Because if, again, that same narcissism, right? If mom's on Facebook all day playing on the phone or whatever, not paying attention or whatever, not spending the time with the kids, helping them to go through their sight words or helping them to understand concepts in math or science or this historical event and how it affected the rest of the timeline down the way, who's going to teach them that? The teacher only gets, you have what, 30 kids in the class?
30 to 35.
and you have, what, an hour, maybe 2 hours with them for that particular subject.
45 minutes.
How the hell are you supposed to spend any more than maybe a minute, minute and a half at most? If you wanted to, you could maybe spend a minute, minute and a half with each kid. That's not even enough time to say, okay, here we go.
No, of course not. So overcrowded classrooms are a problem, obviously, also, but that's I guess, for another topic. But as far as what you said, about people being on the internet and everything, we can't tell people how to live. I'm not trying to tell people how to live, but if you have that half an hour to spend on Facebook, you have that half an hour to read to your child. You just do.
Listen, all the people out there who reach out constantly still and talk about saving our nation, saving our republic, about moving things back and bringing things back, restoring the restoration of America, all these things I hear about. An American reclamation begins with you, right? And that begins with you doing the things that you need to do to bring that about. Everything is local. Everything is local. Even the presidential election is local. It's 50 state elections that determine the president. So get involved. Get involved with your kids. Teach them. Guide them. Spend that time with them. Take the 30 minutes or so, like Rick said, off of whatever you're doing, the TV or whatever it is, even giving up 30 minutes of sleep, and spend it with your kids, whether it's going through their homework with them or just talking about these concepts that you feel are important. If you're a patriot and you think it's a patriotic cause that needs to be spoken about, speak to them about it.
And that's the way you find out what's in school. And you had brought it up in another video that COVID really made that apparent when kids were learning on Zoom,
because
their parents were actually seeing what's there.
What's in front of them.
Well, every school has open week, where parents can come in and sit in the back of the classroom and watch. Go. See, don't wait for COVID to come along. See it. And you have every right to complain about things. Go to the principal if you think something is going wrong. That's the way to fix things. I think, look, again, it's kind of tough being a conservative person in a very liberal system like I was in. But I really never got any, slap back for any of the things that I did or any of the ways that I taught. And I really never knew any teachers who did the things that I hear people say on TV are happening in the school system all the time. I just didn't see it. I saw it once in a while, little bits of it and everything. The LGBTQ stuff is definitely...
Alphabet Mafia, that's a big one, yeah.
That's getting in there. Yeah, and
trans craziness.
Maybe that'll fade out, and I don't know. But
I think it will. I think it's a useful horse for a certain particular group of people that
maybe
have power right now.
But it's not the cause. It's not itself the cause of...
Not at all.
Kids
it's a symptom of.
Because kids
were getting just one piece of a much bigger problem.
Because these reading scores and math scores were going down way before that stuff infiltrated.
I remember hearing about this when I was a kid, right? Talking about all these scores are going down, and we're not doing this, and we're not doing that, and it's very easy to get caught up in like metrics and numbers and things like that, right? It's like the polls. Oh, what's it? The cackling crazy's winning. Like, we all know she's not winning. That's just ridiculous.
The joyful warrior.
The joyful warrior.
She's not the cackling idiot. She's the joyful warrior, Mike.
Listen, cackling idiot and the cum guzzler, all right, are both just a complete disgrace.
May have to edit that one out, buddy.
Nah, we'll leave that one there because you know what? That guy does not get any respect whatsoever. He took a big poop on our dead. So he will always ever be reviled in every way possible.
For the record, YouTube, I totally condemn the words and actions of my partner here. Mike, tell him to subscribe.
Listen, like, subscribe, comment, get involved. Let's talk about this. Let's move this thing forward. Let's start this thing off.
And
okay?
Busy
Bee, do it together.
Busy Bee, Peter, thank you for commenting. I'll be glad to get back to you if you have any comments. Mike would also. We'll shout you out as long as we have the ability to do that. Once we get up to like 18,000, people commenting on each video, which should be soon, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
We won't be able to do that. But we would love to comment. And again, I could be completely wrong on everything I just said. It's just my view.
All right, listen. This is how we move the ball forward. We have these conversations and we start moving the ball forward. Thank you guys for commenting. Stay tuned. At some point in the very near future, we're going to have Pete, and we'll try and get Busy Bee also on. We could maybe get them on too, and we'll have some guests just to kind of hash things up a little bit.
And remember what I said. If people have a problem with the way you want to live your life, what do you tell them?
Yeah, afangu.
Afangu.
Yeah.
Kiss my ass.
YouTube, just for disclaimer, I don't agree with this.
Yeah, he does.
I'm the worst offender with that. Don't even,
All right. Guys, keep commenting. We love you.
We love you guys. Thank you so much.